This is Joe Biden. He is the President of the United States of America. In December 2022, Mr. Joe Biden told the whole world that the United States government had planned to donate $2 billion. The recipient of this sum, Africa. In that same year of 2022, the United States had budgeted $38 billion to give away to countries that are in one crisis or the other. It's a form of charity done by developed countries. This is commonly referred to as foreign aid. Almost 25% of that $38 billion budget was distributed to 10 countries, and on that list are 6 African countries. Developed countries have always risen up to help people in Africa with donations in the form of foreign aid. In fact, in the last 30 years, around $1.2 trillion has been donated as aid to Africa alone. But where is that money? To answer this question, we need to understand how foreign aid works and how it has become a weapon in the hands of the most powerful countries used to keep poorer ones loyal. Now, to start this off, what exactly is foreign aid? From time to time, we come across news of natural disasters, sort of like an earthquake, flood, hurricane, or even a tsunami. When these terrible incidents happen, countries rally around each other to help the victims survive these difficult moments. It's kind of like the best part of humanity when you see people coming together to help their fellow humans survive a crisis. There are also instances like disease outbreaks, such as Ebola that ravaged parts of Africa and the coronavirus pandemic we lived through a few years ago. In all of these terrible events, developed countries from all around the world put together billions of dollars to be able to assist countries from the not so developed parts of the world. This is called foreign aid. It's simply any type of assistance that a certain country or countries give willingly to another. This is, however, not limited to cash or just money alone. The assistance can be in the form of a grant, a loan, or gift. Even people, that is like consultants and experts in required fields. Other forms of foreign aid include food, supplies, even military support can be classified under foreign aid. Now, while this may seem simple enough, make no mistake to call it one. Foreign aid is far from just a simple assistance by developed countries, and you will understand why in just a second. You see, these developed countries don't just get their checkbooks out and dish out money to just about anyone in trouble. It turns out that even in charity, some animals are more equal than others. This is explained by the list of African countries receiving the highest amount of foreign aid. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Kenya, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, and even Tanzania are the countries that got the most foreign aid in 2019. The main donors were, of course, the United States, the EU institutions, the International Development Association, Germany, and the United Kingdom. The United States made around $51 billion in foreign aid in 2020. Several African countries made the list of recipients, including Egypt, which got $1.47 billion. Ethiopia made the list too with $1.21 billion. The other top-ranking African countries on the list were Nigeria, South Africa, and DR Congo. Now, you would think that the top 5 poorest countries in the world based on GDP would feature at the top of this list of foreign aid receivers. Instead, top foreign aid donors like the UK funnels a large chunk of its aid to countries with a large market, such as Nigeria. The same thing can be said of the United States, which gives a large portion of its foreign aid to 3 countries, including Egypt. The major aim, as we can see from these countries who are philanthropists, isn't to put an end to poverty or promote economic growth, but to strengthen something they call geopolitical ambitions. This is where I introduce you to the secret deals behind foreign aid. When the European Union gives their foreign aid to African countries, they are largely concerned about how their own countries can benefit from it. This is why EU aid is dependent on stopping immigration. This fact has led the European Union to outsource a large portion of its border controls to countries with questionable human rights records. For instance, the innovative Migration and Economic Development Partnership entered into by the governments of the UK and Rwanda. Under that partnership, people who make unnecessary, dangerous and illegal journeys to the United Kingdom will be relocated to Rwanda, where they will access support to rebuild their lives. Now, while foreign aid is sometimes concealed in the language of sympathy, kindness and philanthropy, its true objective is to foster the donor's commercial and political interest in Africa. A good example is the relationship between the United States and the Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi. Zenawi was a repressive and authoritative leader, yet the United States didn't hold back on its financial aid program to his government. How about the United Kingdom and Nigeria? In 2018, then Prime Minister Theresa May said her country's foreign aid would be exclusively used as a tool to promote British trade and political interests. According to journalist 𝗪𝗵𝗲𝗿𝗲, Western governments utilize their ability to borrow money at low interest rates, set up aid programs, and then lend this said money to poorer countries at a much higher interest rate. And they call all of these aids. This is a situation where the rich make more money while the poor accumulate more debt. These poor African countries are then offered new foreign aid to help them service all of this accumulated debt. A pathetic cycle where aid-dependent countries have no option but to accept such offers. At the end of the day, you have African countries in the cycle of accepting foreign aid, defaulting, getting offered aid to service such debt, and on it goes. Oh, just to add, African debt stands currently at around $350 billion. While not all of these foreign aids are destructive, many of such initiatives disguised as foreign aid have proven to be destructive to Africa and the African economy. Half of all international development aid given to Africa is tied to something. This means recipient countries are mandated to use it to buy goods and services from the donor country. Whichever way you see it, the money is returning back to the donor country. But it is not just European countries and the United States that are using foreign aid to enslave African countries. Heard about China? Yeah, this giant country in Asia that is racing to become the most powerful country in the world. Yeah, that China is now getting in the business of foreign aid as well. The Chinese government now sees aid as a means to increase its political influence on the African continent. China likewise ties most of its aid to the purchase of goods and services from China. Zambia presents a unique example for us here. There were certain reports in 2018 that Zambia was handing over its national electricity company, ZESCO, to the Chinese. That was the price the Chinese government demanded when the Zambian government defaulted on a loan. China is also in control of ZNBC, its broadcasting company, and there are fears that Chinese have also set their eyes on the main airport in Lusaka. China, just like other Western countries, understands the game, and they are now leading the United States in influence on the African continent. Much of China's aid to Africa is linked to the securing of the continent's natural resources. An instance is the Angola model. China usually gives low-interest loans to countries to depend on commodities such as oil or natural resources as collateral. While it is good to dwell on the positives of China's contribution to the African economy, it's good to understand that there is nothing like free gifts in geopolitics. There's always the other side of the coin worth considering. The short-term benefits this aid provides shouldn't override the potential long-term consequences associated with overlooking issues bordering governance, sustainability, and fairness. Reports have it that China has given Africa loans worth $124 billion since 2016. These loans most times come without any form of oversight. Hence, they are looted by politicians for personal gains. Now, let's talk about these politicians. The African leaders without the balls to confront their Western colleagues or negotiate better trade deals that will benefit their countries. There's a proverb that says, "He who pays the piper indeed dictates the tune." These words hold true in Africa every time. In Ethiopia and Gambia, for instance, a whopping 97% of both governments' budget is gotten from foreign aid. This is simply saying the governments of these two nations are now dangerously detached from their citizens and have become a puppet in the hands of the donors. Western powers use foreign aid as a vehicle through which certain policies are implemented in Africa. France is a peculiar instance. France has developed a reputation due to its willingness to intervene in Africans' affairs on behalf of its Western allies. This is possible because it has the political will to make such interventions. France, over the years, has had a far-reaching influence on Francophone countries like Cameroon, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Algeria, and etc. It is just recently that France is losing its grip on these African countries. For several years, they were able to decide from faraway Paris who should win certain elections and who shouldn't, all because they pay the piper. Although that seems to be changing in recent years. However, the coups happening in these countries and the new force coming into the region simply suggest these countries are only replacing one master with another. Over the last 10 years, Russia has gained a certain level of influence in Africa. Russia has grown to be a major partner in the fight against terrorism and insurgency in the continent. Russia has made significant gains in filling in power vacuums left by the West. For example, when the United States pulled out of a 2014 deal to supply Nigeria with the shipment of attack helicopters, Russia stepped in and signed an agreement to provide it with 6 Mi-35 helicopters. Russia also accounts for 31% of Egypt's major weaponry imports. This was another vacuum it stepped into due to the exit of the Americans following the 2013 coup in Egypt. The gradual weakening of relations between the West and Africa has provided another avenue for Russia to widen its net. African leaders are now turning to Russia for military support. This support has come majorly from the Wagner Group and welcomed by Vladimir Putin. In exchange for all of this, Russia continues to push forward its foreign policy and exert more control on African leaders. Burkina Faso presents an example here. Russian private military contractors are finding a home there because the coup leader is turning to them for some form of legitimacy. In return, Russia gets to further widen its grip over Burkina Faso's political affairs and natural resources. The recent military adventure in Niger has also given Putin another potential ally in the region, an important one at that, considering the strategic location of Niger in a Sahel region plagued by terrorist groups. Now, it is good to ask, could it be that Putin's move into Africa is to make African leaders his puppets? What if all these coups are mere political calculations in anticipation of the war in Ukraine spilling over? It means Russia's military and economic resources may come under severe strain. The foreign aid African countries are getting now will in the future become insurance for the Russian Federation, if that were to happen. If Africa becomes indebted to Russia, it will become a constant political and economic base for the Kremlin. So, whether it is the United States, United Kingdom, France, China, or Russia, the motive behind their foreign aid is questionable. It simply makes African leaders their puppets in their journey to world dominance. Foreign aid isn't structured in a way to further the interest of Africa in the long term. Therefore, new policies and incentives need to be put together to show progress. It is in the interest of Africa for foreign aid to be converted to trade agreements instead. The capabilities of Africans need to be enhanced so they can be creators of wealth and enterprise. Thorough and well thought out economic management matters more to a developing continent like Africa than some foreign aid. putting strong institutions in place while preventing foreign aid from being a curse on Africans. Developed countries should place more emphasis on improving governance instead of handing out financial assistance. African leaders, on the other hand, need to realize that not all handouts are free, and if we have learned anything from the 40th law of power, free gifts by Western countries have been more expensive than expected, especially for resource-rich countries in Africa. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and do well to check out this video showing up on your screen right now, and I'll see you inside.